death of Peter Sutcliffe, the so-called Yorkshire Ripper, on the 13th of November 2020 has made me ponder the nature of serial killing and consider how in what is known as Ripperology people choose the suspect to fit the culprit of their own imagination. For example, there's a constant repeated desire for the culprit to be part of what we might now call the deep state, involving Freemasons or the royal family, or ideally both. That gives a sort of more satisfying form of closure for some people. The other recurring theme is that the Ripper might be a famous artist or a poet or a writer, a form of celebrity about whose lives things are known, and the Ripper mystery can be hung around those known details. Then there were the suspects that were contemporary to the late Victorian period that satisfied their prejudices. A foreigner, a madman, a weirdo, and we can supply names that fit the bill here, can't we? At the time of the Annie Chapman murder, the main suspect was called John Pizer. He had been a suspect from the death of Polly Nichols, right here on Bucks Row, right up to a few days after the murder of Annie Chapman. And he was the local weirdo. And he was a Jew to boot. And of course, after that, we had Kosminski, a nutcase and a Jew. Now, of course, the police, even to this day, often try and fit up the local weirdo, but at least they know that nutcases make very poor serial killers. There has been some advances. But this, anyway, leads me to the next type of suspect. For some people, they find it hard to believe that the police force for the largest metropolis in the known world at that time, the city that was the hub of the greatest empire the world has ever seen, upon which the sun never set, whose navy controlled the deep watery seas, whose Queen Empress Victoria sat as a colossus, that police force would be outwitted by a mere oikish nobody. And so the middle class suspect comes into vogue, the man who's got a bit of a conscience, a soul, a sensitivity, a man who is a worthy opponent of the upper class public school educated toffs who ran the police force and had at their disposal thousands of uniformed beat policemen and a detective force that was the envy of less happy lands. Step forward the suspects such as Montague Druitt, the public school Oxford educated sensitive soul who finished his own life. These are the suspects of fiction and of melodrama, of potboilers. They aren't real, serious serial killing suspects. But what of Peter Sutcliffe? He was a lorry driver, the man, a carman, in Victorian terms, a carman. He was a family man. He was visited, interviewed and cleared by the police several times. He was convicted of 13 murders and 7 other attacks, although many people suspect that he was responsible for others as well. The police were sidetracked and suspected someone else, and so they didn't follow up properly on the leads which they should have had, which should have nailed Sutcliffe many years before. By normal standards, you'd say that Sutcliffe was mad, although he wasn't overtly mad. His wife gave him an alibi and sort of stuck by him. The same man who left his victims on display, just like Jack the Ripper did, to shock and awe those who found the bodies. He pretended to be a schizophrenic. He was sensible enough to pretend to put on the symptoms of schizophrenia to try and lessen his sentence, knowing that schizophrenics don't make real serial killers. But what is actually more chilling? The celebrity killer, or the overt nutcase, or the outlandish foreigner who you can avoid and you can tell from a mile off, or the normal, outwardly normal, seemingly ordinary, part of the landscape, part of the woodwork, Joe Soap, the family man who you trust, who you'd bring into your house even, not knowing the dark side, the demons that possess that man's inner soul. That is actually a much more realistic and much more chilling and scary thing about serial killers. And this is what we find with Peter Sutcliffe, with Dennis Nielsen, with Fred and Rose West, with Reginald Christie even, and in America you could say with Ted Bundy, Ridgway, the BTK killer, and even with the latest one, the Golden State Killer. They all pass themselves off as everyman, as a normal sort of person. That's why they get away with it for so long in all these cases. The banality of evil makes it more troubling, more sinister, more real, more creepy, more difficult to solve these cases. And that is actually the essence of the case against Charles Lechmere as the Thames Torso murderer and Jack the Ripper. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Thank you.